Do you record to the cloud or the computer?
There you go.
Okay. All right, make sure everybody said yes, it's okay. Anybody, if there's a queue that comes up, Jim, where do they show up? If there are any latecomers.
In the participants column.
Okay, gotcha. I'll find it. All right, well, welcome to tonight's 1776 Syndicate Call. I'm going to cover some quick groundwork. And Jim, if you've got to run, I know that you've got important business calling. You can jet out anytime you need to. But I'm going to be hosting the call tonight. We've got with us Flathead County Commissioner Brad Abell. And we are excited to have him for several different reasons, as he's going to explain during the course of his comments tonight. But as far as groundwork, make sure your computer is on mute until I call on you. If you've got questions, comments, put them in the chat, and then I can unmute you, and you can unmute yourself, and we will get that online. Don't record the calls. We're doing that, so it'll all be for posterity's sake on the back end. And maintain professional tone. You know, we all are big boys and girls here. And cordial. So we've not had a problem so far. Maybe we'll even get rid of that down the road. We'll see. In any case, Brad Abell was an equipment operator for Weyerhaeuser Timber. And Brad, I have to say that my heart is with you, because I worked in the woods when I was in college for Champion International, which became Plum Creek, which became Weyerhaeuser. So I go way back to killing trees and working in the woods and working on fires and everything else. But you worked in a different capacity, and you had a lot more stamina than I did, because you kept at it a lot longer. So,
I made it almost 30 years before I got a wild hair. I was working there at Plum Creek when they absorbed Champion, and I remember that back then. You know, our timber expanded, our timber base. You know, it was, and then when Weyerhaeuser took over, unloaded all those log trucks. I don't know how many thousands of log trucks I unloaded. Spent 25 years running the Wagner and the Evergreen, the Yard, and unloading log trucks for them. So,
you know, I'm gonna have you tie that into your talk. Maybe you've already planned on addressing this, but I've asked you to talk tonight about the learning curve when you're elected to public office. So our goal here at the Syndicate is to help people who are maybe thinking about running for office, or who are running for office, and maybe people who have been on the fence, but they're scared. You know, what would that leap mean? So your discussion tonight is going to be good, but I also want you to lean heavily on how your experience, your life experience, you know, both as a mechanic and everything else that you've done as well, how that experience lends to you being a good steward of the government for the rest of the people. And I know that that's true because I've been there, but I want you to address that. If it's not in your regular comments, I'm going to bring it back up, because I have it in my notes. So that's it for introduction. Brad, we're excited to have you here. You've been on as a county commissioner. How long have you been sitting in that position?
a year and 4 months right today.
You've got to count down. Well, happy anniversary. Congratulations. Yep. And you've weathered the COVID storm as well.
I did. I jumped in my race on the 9th day of March, which was the last day to file in 2020. And COVID was just coming to the forefront as a topic that, I mean, we weren't talking about it before then. I didn't even really realize it was going on, and just little rumblings. I didn't know what anything about it. And I jumped into this, and I never let it slow me down. I mean, I hear everybody talk about how they lost a year or 2 years of their life. I had the busiest 2 years of my life in the last 2 years. So I did see coworkers that stayed home, made more money than I did staying home than I did working. But so COVID was a different, I experienced it different, I think, than most everybody else did. You know, the learning curve, I think you have it in anything that if you jump out of the nest where you're comfortable, you have a learning curve in this life, or you're going to stay in that same minimum wage job the rest of your life. You've got to, go out there and jump off the ledge and you got to jump if you're going to soar. I guess that's what I see. And they tell me, God doesn't choose the qualified, he qualifies the chosen. And it's just, you got to go out there, and there's public associations. I know as a county commissioner, we have MACO, Montana Association of Counties. I've gone to every meeting and I learned a little bit at every one of them, and about how our government works, what the county's place in that government is, what our responsibilities are versus what the cities are, and the state legislature. I mean, we all form different functions, and that's was for me a lot of the learning curve was figuring out where the county's responsibilities and powers were, and how to fulfill that. And seems like a lot of the time I'm an information officer to send people to the right place to get the right answers, and I've learned a lot about how to do that, whose responsibility it is, and how to direct somebody to the person that they can give them the right answer. And going back to your what you were talking about on my past, I mean, I grew up as a ranch kid. I got thrown into, I was driving a tractor by myself at 10 or 11 years old. I can't imagine, I see kids out there today, I can't imagine turning my 10 or 11-year-old loose on a tractor, but that's what my dad did. So I guess, there was a lot of it growing up where I just got thrown into it because I was the only one there to do the job. So, and I look back on those experiences, and they helped me well throughout my life. When I went to work for Plum Creek as a laborer, in 6 short months, I was running a piece of equipment for them. I forged ahead because I was willing to take that chance. I mean, some of it was there's a bigger chance to fail when you jump out and try and fly that way, and try and soar. And it's scary at times. But you look at those around you and you ask questions. I really believe you can't, if you want to learn new things, you can't put up a front and make people believe that you already know it all, or then they won't help you. But if you are humble and are willing to go out there and tell people what you don't know, what you are ignorant, all of us, I feel, are ignorant about something, and that doesn't mean you're stupid. It just means you haven't learned that yet. And you got to be able to admit that, and you'll learn faster, because people will be more willing, I've found, to help you when you kind of play dumb. And I always told people that was easy for me to do, but because I came by it naturally. But I try and be humble and look to others in government right now on what how they are handle the problems, how they handle the problems with people that disagree with you, with people that agree with you, or there's a lot of people want you to do it their way. And I have a strong ideology, and I want to take that into consideration. But sometimes people go, well, you don't listen to me. and I do. I feel I listen to everybody. I don't always agree with everybody I talk to, but if you've talked to me, I've listened to you. And if I don't do it your way, I might have disagreed with you on a small part or a large part, and I try and be honest with people, and I feel it served me well to that. But I look back on the things I've done. I've been a solid blue collar worker. I spent 30 years working shift work. I feel I talk to those people I work with. I've got a good feel for the pulse of that guy that's, getting up in the afternoon, going to work all night, or getting up early in the morning, or one of those things. And that's the guy that I feel government sometimes passes over. He's the base, and he's ignored because he'll vote for me no matter what. But those are the people I really feel I have to listen to, is those guys that I work with day in and day out. And they're the people that elected me. I had a lot of relationship with those people. I didn't realize it when I first ran. I have come to know that afterwards. I spent very little money but in my election, but I really feel that it was somebody I knew, or who knew me, I'd worked with, that saw my work ethic, and he went and told 3 of his friends, and then 3 of his friends told 3 of their friends that, hey, I heard Brad was a good guy. And that's valuable when and I never had planned to run for office for most of my career, life. I did this late in life. It was kind of a spur of the moment thing. And, I just got up and went to work every day and worked alongside these guys. I sold them horses. I trained horses for them. They saw me live my life, and that's what so I look at those people, and, they're the people that are important for me to really look out for, the guys that were like I was. And I'm still that guy. I mean, I go out and, I unloaded a ton of hay off of my horse trailer tonight when I got home from work, and I'm a common everyday guy.
So I'm going to get back to your learning curve. I've got some more questions on that, but I do want to ask, and I know that you had an interest in politics based on who you listened to on the radio, but what can you kind of give, our audience an idea of what it was what was the impetus to get you to actually say, okay, I'm going to go write a check at the elections office and file a candidacy paper? Because that's something you obviously had to talk to your wife about, your family and stuff. But what was that? What was the final nudge for you there? And then we're going to get back into, okay, then you got elected. But take me back to that moment.
Well, there was a fellow I went to high school with. It was a previous county commissioner. He lost to Randy Rodell, and 4 years ago now. And he was lamenting on Facebook about how stupid everybody else was, and how he should have gotten elected. And I told him, I said, Gary, you didn't serve as the person you proclaimed to be when you ran. You proclaimed to be a Republican, a conservative, and I don't feel you served that way. I said, you're what everybody calls rhino. And he got upset with me and told me if I was so damn smart, I should run. And I'd always thought about running, but I didn't think I had it in me to do that. And I went and asked some friends of mine, a couple. I said, what do you think? And I expect them to go, no, you're right. You probably shouldn't do that. And they all told me, they said, boy, you'd be great at it. And then I hemmed and hawed for a few days. That's why it was, the last day of filing, I ran. I mean, that was my impetus. I felt I felt he wasn't honest about who he is. I have more admiration for somebody that doesn't agree with me politically, but admits it. And, whatever your belief is, I believe you should be proud of it. And, if you're a Democrat, go tell people you're a Democrat and why you are, and own up to it and be honest. That's an honest politician, as far as I'm concerned, is the guy that tells you why he wants to run, what his ideology is, and then follows through with that after he gets in office. People get labeled a rhino, and I really don't like that term. But because we're all levels. I mean, none of us we have all different viewpoints. Even conservatives can have different viewpoints from each other. And just because we don't agree with somebody on one, we're not, that isn't bad. But tell people who you are. And I feel I did. I went out there and told, people that, I want to help control taxes. At first I said I wanted to lower them, and I don't think that's possible. But, if we can keep them from raising beyond our belief, beyond belief. Anyway, I really felt that he wasn't honest about who he was, and that's what propelled me. And my goal is to be honest to a fault about who I am. And if I don't agree with you, I'll tell you, and I'll try and tell you why. So that's what propelled me into the race. And then I found out that it actually took some money or they told me it took money to win, and then I didn't have any of that to spare. So,
Go ahead and hit on that, Brad, because this is an important lesson for people as well. Because things there, you're an anomaly in the political newcomer world, right? And that happens.
And so I went out there. I mean, a friend of mine, I've known him for years, was backing another candidate, and he called me up and said, "Well, you threw your hat in the race." And I said, "Yeah." He said, that race takes $25,000 to win." And I said, "No." I said, "I don't have 25,000. And he goes, "Well, you're supposed to find people that'll loan or to donate it to you." And I said, "I don't know anybody that's got 25,000 to spare." So I went out, and another friend of mine had a stack of old reject plywood, and we drug 15 sheets out of there and painted them white and wrote my name on them. The other advice this guy gave me was, he said, "Buy you 50 yard signs and don't leave any of them in your garage." And I got 25 of them out and found places to keep them. And then, but what I didn't know was the relationship I'd built over all those years. I didn't take that into account. And, not everybody can do that. I did that by long before I ever decided to run for office. I mean, the stars were aligned with me, and then COVID happened, and the candidates that were prepared couldn't get out and campaign, and it kind of leveled the playing field, I feel, for me. And I was in a three-way race, but I came out and declared that I was a conservative candidate, wrote my name on the signs, put them out, found a place to put 13 4x8 pieces of plywood and 25 yard signs, and made a couple interviews in the paper. And I wasn't sure if I'd blown those or how they were, but they sounded better when I read them in the paper the next day than they did when I got done with my telephone interviews. Everything was telephone. Nobody wanted to meet up with anybody. So those things worked in my favor, and those candidates that had organization behind them struggled to get out and do what they were supposed to do, the door knocking and those kind of things. So, and it was a close race. I won by 90 votes, separated the first and second place. So it was close.
Did you still go out and door knock even though it was COVID?
Nope. I did after the primary, but I didn't know that you could even do that during the primary. I was as politically naive, I think, as anybody that's ever run for my position. I'm pretty sure that I was the most politically naive person to ever win Flathead County Commissioner, at least in modern times. It might have been back in the early part of the founding of Flathead County that there was probably some guys that were like me out there that ran then, but that was a different time. Those people I'm sure had relationships and that, and I think you have those relationships in the smaller counties in eastern Montana and those places. There's these old farmers who would run them. But for all of our people here, I really feel the Flathead Valley is still a small community. It's surprising how many people I go out there and meet that know somebody that I know, or we've gone to high school together, or my brother went to high school with them, and all that. It isn't just me, it was my friends and family that knew me too, so that relationship goes a long ways.
Well, I will tell you this too, Brad, that I voted for you and I had never met you. I didn't know you, but what I knew was you were an equipment operator for 30 years.
Right.
And that resonated with me because I know what hard work is and I know what dedication is. And you got my vote then, and I didn't know a thing about you. And, you mentioned that the stars aligned. And I think that goes to, Shakespeare put it best. He says, it was in Hamlet, he said, there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew 'em how we will.
Right.
There's something else in control here. And you were supposed to be in this position. And I think if you hadn't stepped up, you would have been in violation of what you're supposed to do.
Oh,
So I think if we're prompted, and as you were, there was a prompting in you to get involved. And if you hadn't done that, I think it would have been a disservice to our community.
Right. And that's what I said. I was pushed out of the nest a little bit by things that happened. And I can look back on and see several things that happened. And you're right. People like a commissioner candidate to have a few gray hairs. I was 60 years old. My opponents were in their 30s. I was, they're half my age. I'm sure that fell in part. I know there was a lot of people that didn't know me and voted for me. I mean, I think there was a little eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but they go, well, we're gonna go with the old guy. And
I lost your video. There you go. Hello.
there you go.
Back.
Oh, I had a phone call trying to come in on my phone,
Oh.
but yeah, I think there was a little bit of eeny, meeny, miny, mo. But I ran into tons of people that go, yeah, I voted for you. And I asked them why. I mean, I don't know. I'm a man of faith. I believe God sent me, he had a strong part in this. He guided me along the way. I spent my whole life, I look at it back on it now, and I really feel I spent my whole life learning how to relate to people and be a servant to the people as much as I can.
That's probably one of the most important things we can get off of tonight's call, Brad. Thanks for sharing that. All right, I'm gonna circle back now. Can I say circle back?
Yeah.
We're gonna circle back to that learning curve, because I know that you were aware of national politics and you were aware of local politics. But had you gone to city council meetings or board meetings or county commissioner meetings, what was your level of knowing how the process works, how the government process works, how civil meetings are handled with Robert's Rule of Order? What was your experience in that area?
I was an FFA student with the ag program here in Flathead High when I went to high school 45 years ago. I knew a little bit about Robert's Rules of Order. I was a parliamentarian when I was in FFA, so I was supposed to know a lot more about it, I think, than I did. I hadn't done any of that for years. But after I won the primary, I showed up for every commissioner meeting that I wasn't working for. I was working rotating shifts, so I'd get up at I'd come home from work at 7:30 in the morning if I was on night shift, and take a shower and go in and watch the commissioner meetings. And I'd do that on the days, and then I'd come home, go to bed, and get up that night and go back to work. I put a lot of time I watched every one of them. I sat there and I didn't give up and give my opinion about anything. I went there to learn how they were operated, what was going on. So I had a pretty good idea. I talked to the other commissioners. I could do that before I was, one of them without being, we weren't a quorum. So I could talk to them, pick their brain about how they came to decisions. A lot of what the commissioner do is zoning and subdivisions. I had some friends that were in that business. I went and talked to them about, the whys of the planning board and how that worked and those kind of things. So I just tried to watch and observe from the June to November, 5 months there. I spent a lot. I probably attended over 50% of the commissioner meetings that happened during that time.
Wow.
And then I'd never been to a city council meeting. I'd never done any of those kind of things. I thought my duty as a citizen was to show up every 2 years and vote. But I had an opinion. I had an ideology. I sat in my loader and listened to AM radio and listened to Rush and Sean Hannity and Mark Levin and all those guys, until I'd get mad, and then I'd listen to some music and then I'd go back. I was kind of a AM radio junkie, and so I had a good understanding of how, of my ideology and what it was. But I didn't know much about the meetings. I didn't understand, how for a while, I couldn't understand why the city could do certain things at the county. I thought, well, the county's bigger. They should be more important than the city. They should be over the city. And really they're side by side. They're a lot of things. The city has more power. They're self-governed, where we're under general rule, but we're all subdivisions of the state of Montana, so those kind of things and trying to figure out how that all works and then sometimes you just got to learn to, not make rush judgments. I mean, I can make a rush judgment and it can result in $1 million lawsuit against the county, and we need to learn to step back and take a deep breath and maybe table something for a little bit. So run it through our legal to make sure that we aren't, getting ourselves in trouble. So those are the kind of things that, that you learn that as you go on. I mean, when you first start, you're just gung ho.
That part of the process before you were elected.
I did learn some of that before. I was told that by the other commissioners, how to, the pitfalls of making rash decisions, how you need to slow down and have people you can go to and what do you think of that, and then make a decision from that point.
Right. Jim did have to cut out again at school board election night, so that explains a lot. But he had a question, and this is his question for you. He said, has the job as commissioner been better or worse than you expected?
I think it's been about what I expected. I don't think it's been either one. I really enjoy being a commissioner. The vast majority of the times, there's times it's a very frustrating, and when people don't agree with you and they're writing you bad letters and emails and complaining about the decision you make. But you gotta, there's 30 people sometimes that are against you, but there's 65,000 voters. So I always say the other 64,970 people, I got to look out for them too. And I have to look at that and take those people into consideration too. So all in all, it's a pretty good job. There's some freedom. I enjoy getting out and meeting people. I've tried to be accessible because that's still part of the learning curve. I mean, I learn from people every day. I go to our pachyderm meetings, our central committee meetings. I hear from people that I learn more from people that don't agree with me than I do from people that do. And I have people come up and go, why? And I have to explain that. And sometimes the process of explaining why I did something is a learning experience for me. That's part of that learning curve, is being able to explain why you did something. I think that's really important. It's not so much, it's really tough sometimes to go, well, what's the conservative side of this? And sometimes there isn't a conservative side. There's just a right side and a wrong side to it.
I've just taken some quick notes here. And this is stuff I'm going to be passing on. I'm going to be highlighting this. A learning curve, part of that learning curve is continuing to be involved in your community. And that's something I will say. I see you out and about. I get around a little bit and I see you all over the place. And I'm sure I'm just skimming the surface. And the second thing was, you learn from those who disagree with you. So when we talk about learning curve and people going into office, it's not just about the fundamentals of governance, but about representation. I think that's what we have to remember, is that learning curve continues, and you've just really illustrated that. And I want to compliment you too, Brad, because you came into politics as really that grassroots guy. You're the everyday man. You're that working guy, right? You represent the working blue collar class, and you've not strayed from that. And I think it's served you well in this. And that's not to say that successful candidates have to come from blue collar or grassroots stuff, but there's something to be said for using the skills that you've learned from whatever place in life you found yourself. Whether it's white collar, blue collar. I call myself a multi-collar because I've done all of it, including right. No collar. Right. So I've run that gamut, and I've seen the beauty in that. But you've managed to stay consistent with that and continue to learn, and I appreciate that about you. And the other thing you said was learning from explaining your position, and I think that's a quality. We can talk about that as we get down the road here, but that's something that I did learn with my government service. Explaining my position helped solidify why I believed in that decision, why I came to that conclusion. And I think that makes for a stronger set of core values, which if you decide to run again, I think will be beneficial to you. Right. I know I'm projecting out down the road a little ways here, but you're still a young.
My internet here is freezing up with you a little bit, so.
It's all right. I'll be patient.
Okay, I'm waiting for it. Yeah. I agree that you have to have core values. You have to have a guiding light. I know past commissioners that were easily led. They're more prone to make a mistake, I feel, to go along. I worried that I was a people pleaser. Well, I found out I wasn't. I got enough, I don't want to be a people pleaser. I want to that's not where I'm at. But I want to be able to explain why. And I'd listen to people that I disagree with. And, I think you got to remember, no matter what side of the fence you are on, once you get here, your job is to be a servant to the people and look out for the best interest of the Flathead County. I've had, I wasn't born here. My dad came here when he was 3 years old, which was 120 or 102 years ago. But he kept getting pulled away to make a living someplace else. And, my roots are deep here. My great grandfather's buried in Conrad Cemetery. But I was pretty young when I came back, and I left a couple times. And, I got a great love for the Flathead Valley, and that's what drives me now. What's my passion is for the Flathead Valley. This is one of the greatest places in this great state of Montana to live. I can't imagine living anywhere else. I wish we had a little less snow sometimes, but other than that, it's a great part. And we have to, we're under this growth that's going on. It's unprecedented, and trying to figure out how we deal with that and still retain some of the flavor of the Flathead Valley, because we can't go back to 1967. We got to forge on, but we got to do the best we can to make sure our water stays clean and our air is still good, and get rid of the smoke in the summertime and those kind of things. And just look, there's a lot to do here right now.
I'm going to interrupt you because you actually segued right in. I don't know if you saw Jerry's question in the chat over here, but Jerry asked a question, and it's exactly what you're talking about. And there are some things we can't do anything about. One of them is weather, and the other one is the influx of people coming in, because the Flathead Valley is Flathead County is not a gated community. We don't have a wall here. Right. So, but her question is, she says, hi, Brad, after being a commissioner for more than a year now, do you feel our local government is able to handle the massive population boom challenges with affordable housing, infrastructure, and keeping our longtime locals here in the Valley? Or do you think our local government needs more assistance? That's a loaded question. There's two questions there. So
yeah,
start with the first.
As far as affordable housing, I really don't think that's government's role. It's a lot of times on that, it's government's role to get out of the way and let the free market. I'm a free market capitalist. I don't know how affordable housing has the intonation that government can do something about it. And unless you take taxpayers' monies and buy houses for people, I don't know how government puts affordable housing in there. But it can increase the supply of houses. Montana's our contrary bunch. We don't, if somebody wants to build a hotel in downtown Whitefish, we go, oh my God, no, let's not let them. But then when that hospitality in industry moves into our neighborhoods with VRBOs, we go, oh, we can't have that either. But people, when they destroyed the timber industry here, they said, well, tourism is going to fix that. Well, you have what the result of tourism right now. I mean, there's a lot of us that we want growth, we just don't want it in our backyard. My neighbor put in a trailer park next to me, a RV park. And I made enemies with some of my neighbors because I went to the planning board and said, I think it's going to be a good deal. It's a needed thing, and it's her property, and I believe in her property rights. And I was the most affected neighbor. She bordered me on two sides of my property. My thing, I thought we were going to get a better driveway. My driveway got improved out of it. So I looked at those good things, but I supported my neighbor's private property rights. And my other neighbors were mad at me because they didn't want her to do that on their property. And 2 years into it, those guys that come in the mobile or the motorhomes, they're driving $200,000 motorhomes. They park there and they go out and look at Glacier Park or drive through. I never see them. They are good neighbors, and that's what I claimed they would be. And so I support. I mean, that's how you support affordable housing. I've heard there's 6,000 homes private homes that land management places have bought up and turned into VRBOs. That's one of the problems of our housing problem here today, is these property management areas or businesses have bought up these houses and turned them into VRBOs. That's not a very efficient use of our housing. I wish there was middle-class families living in them. I don't know how you fix that unless you build more hotels and put the VRBOs out of business, that way.
We can talk about that from what the city of Kalispell did. But first, I asked Jerry to unmute because the second part of her question here, and I want her to kind of go into the weeds on this one a little bit, but she said, or do you think our local government needs more assistance? So Jerry, I've asked you to unmute because I'm sure Brad's going to say, what kind of assistance are you thinking? Because
Sure.
I'm thinking that.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Oh, yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I know it's a loaded question. Actually, it's the question that I asked is something that I've been thinking about for the last 2 years, because it's heavy on my heart. I'm watching, families move out of the valley. I'm watching older folks being taxed out of their homes. Just today, I'm close to Big Fork, and I'm on this Big Fork Facebook info page, and this 85-year-old gentleman is being evicted after renting a place for 33 years, and the property just got bought up, and it's going to be turned into an RV park. He's 85. He's got nowhere to go. Being 85 years old, you kind of have, your routine, and you don't know how well you can see. And I'm just thinking he's not going to last. I don't want to see this type of thing happen. So I'm proactive. I'm trying to think of ways, always looking for solutions, because you can complain all you want. We have to find solutions. So when I say, or do you think, does our local government need more assistance? I don't know how to put a label on city council and county commissioners, planning board. But what I mean by that is, do we need to become more efficient? Like the county commissioners, do we need another seat because we've grown, for example? Do we need to, what do we need to do to become more efficient and more effective? Because I'm certain that with all of these homes coming into the valley, it's going to start taking a toll on our water systems, our sewage systems. I know that we're behind the 8 ball with all of these homes being erected all of a sudden. I have clients, I'm a designer, and I have clients that have told me they're way behind because we do not have skilled laborers. They're all taken up. There's people who want to come in, and we have a lot of illegal aliens here now that are working, and I'm sure you've seen them in the white vans, and they're from south of the border, and they're working, but they're not skilled. They might be hard workers, but they're not skilled, and they can't do finished concrete. And so you have the situation here where we've got these half-finished homes that are 6 months to a year behind. And then when they do get the workers who are skilled on the job, they can't get the concrete because they're running out of concrete. So, and what they're telling me, what the contractors are telling me, and I deal with them all the time, and what the clients are telling me is what they're hearing from these folks is there's not any affordable housing to put the skilled laborers in. So it's like, okay, we've got a double-edged sword here. We've got a working class, the blue collar workers, the skilled laborers that we want to put to work to build the houses. And we've got the millionaires, and we've got the billionaires now that are buying out the millionaires. That's what's happening. And it happened in Incline Village as well. It's happened. I mean, we're the hottest spot right now, right? But we also have this class of average, everyday hardworking folks that have been here a long time, but we still need to service these people. So what do we do? So I've been thinking about this, and when I asked the question, okay, the government, does our local government need more assistance? I'm thinking about brain power. What can we do? Is there, another committee? I'm not looking for handouts. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, does our local government need more of a task committee, or a group of people that just are extremely, this is what they do. They come in, they assess the situation, and they say, like Aspen, Colorado, I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't know what it was like when they boomed, but like a group of people who have seen this happen before, so that we don't get further and further behind the 8 ball. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I don't want to see our old folks be taxed out of their homes. And I don't want to see young families who have relatives here have to move out of the area. I want to see that middle class thrive, but that doesn't mean they have to have, a super fancy house. But I know when I checked on this 4 months ago, the median price for a home in Kalispell proper was $479,000, when the median wage for one person was around 27,000. So we have a discrepancy, terrible discrepancy. And do we need to bring people who analyze the situation to bring this gap closer together? What do we need to do to find that, to make that equation work? That's what I mean, because I believe there is a solution. I do. We just have to find it.
Brad, any comments?
Yeah, I believe I still like taxation, taxing the older people out of their houses. The only way we do that is by keeping government costs down. We want our roads plowed. We want our sheriff to show up when we have a problem. We want to be able to call 911. We want a place to go dump our garbage. We want all these things. So, but last year the county budget didn't increase. It was pretty flat. And, I know our mill levies went up, or not our mill levies, our assessments went up. Our property's worth twice what it was 2 years ago. That doesn't mean our taxes doubled. We're just going to find out, what our taxes have done. But, just because your assessment went up by double doesn't mean your taxes went up by double. Because we kept the spending. We look at our school. I mean, the school bonds that are and levies that are out there right now. Be careful when you're voting for them. If you don't want to tax grandma out of her house or grandpa out of his house, you got to, decide how we do that. And the other thing I look at is infrastructure never keeps up with growth. It always follows growth. There's no reason to go out there and build infrastructure that's beyond the growth that we have today. So we're always struggling. We're always behind the 8 ball on that. We're trying to catch up with our infrastructure to our growth. But I've been through busts and booms here. We're in a little bit, we're in a growth boom in the Flathead right now. It'll slow down. It'll level off. We'll catch up with those things. The traffic's going to be a little tough to get through from time to time. I don't think we need outside help. Ronald Reagan said, what the scariest thing is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I just really don't think that's our role, isn't to go. I'm a firm believer that free enterprise and we'll take care of it. It'll be slow. It's not going to do it overnight. You talk about the houses are, these people that are building their houses don't have place for the skilled laborers to live. Some of them are living in fifth wheels and they're paying a lot of money in an RV park to live there. But we don't have the people out there to build the houses. If we could fund them, it takes a year to build a house. My friend's building a house down in Ennis, Montana right now. He's 11 months into it. He's looking at 2 more months to get into it before he lives there. So even if we had a committee that had all the answers, they can't materialize these people in these houses out of thin air. So I don't know where the help has come from. I have to rely on the free market, and capitalism will figure it out. But the more government tries to get in there and fix it, I think the more they're going to muck up the waters and make it worse. Like the city of Kalispell, by doing away with impact fees and those kind of things, that's government getting out of the way and allowing the process to go. I look at our supply chain issues and the price of a piece of plywood today. Those are all obstacles in the way of affordable housing, and on a local level here, we can't do anything with those issues. So I don't know how we fix those. I don't necessarily have the answer for that.
Right.
Brad, I appreciate your honesty. I will throw out one thing, and then I want to get back to our original
Thank you, Brad.
discussion.
You bet, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for the question. Those are hard questions. And, I remember back in 85, 86, the winter of 85, 86, we are one major winter event away from fixing this growth problem. The problem that spring was nobody could find a U-Haul or a rental vehicle to pack their stuff up and move back to Arizona and California. So, things do change. They're in flux.
Yeah.
And I wanted to throw this out there because I was on city council for 5.5 years, and VRBOs were on our radar and a big thing there. And we actually passed an ordinance that said they had to be at a 2, I can't remember, it was 2 or 3% of the available market houses. So we allow them. So if you're a private property owner, you want to VRBO your home, you can, but you have to fall within that guideline, because once it's there, it's capped,
Right.
and 2 to 3% is not a big number, but we're under that. We've been under that ever since we did that ordinance. So, maybe the county could explore something like that. I don't know. That's not my purview, but I'm just saying we look at different things in different municipalities. It's up to the local people to figure out if they want to do those sorts of things, because again, you're limiting people's property rights when you do things like that. So it's a double-edged sword no matter what. So I'm going to go back to our topic. Brad, what advice would you give people who are considering running for office or a board seat for the very first time? What advice would you give them?
Is go out that you're going to represent and be approachable and be willing to have that conversation with both sides of the fence. I mean, talk to the guy you don't agree with and be open-minded. Don't get in a fight with him. I've had people in my office they didn't like my decisions with the life station with him. It got done. The one fellow said, I'm worried about children's story hour. And I said, I am too. That's why I feel our library trustees are looking out for that. And he disagreed with me. And I said, I shook his hand and said, we'll have to agree to disagree on this. And I said, I hope we'll still be friends. And you're welcome to come back here and tell me I'm wrong anytime that you choose to. So don't call people names. Keep those dialogues open and look at that. I mean, I think it's important to not resort to name calling and those kind of things, and try and keep the dialogue open. I think I'm pretty good at having a conversation with people I disagree with and leaving and not, just being able to have that conversation and keep that going. And maybe
Brad,
I can
that's
change
good
their
advice.
mind.
Yeah, that's good advice, whether you're running for office or not. So,
Right.
yeah.
I remember my dad used to, you don't talk religion or politics with your friends. And I think sometimes maybe we should be taught how to have a conversation about things we disagree with our friends, so we can sit down and just have a dialogue and go, we don't have to, I don't have to convince you that I'm right or that you're wrong. I mean, we can just bounce ideas off of each other. I think that's really important when it's all said and done. And I see that in our local, our pachyderm. I go to those and I don't always agree with people, but I definitely don't sometimes at our central committee meetings but we bounce ideas off there and we try and come to, some kind of a reasonable, middle ground.
Right. Well, we're coming close to wrap up time. I have one final question I want to ask you, and that is, you've been at this 1 year and 4 months. How long did it take before you felt comfortable being County Commissioner Brad Abell?
It took it somewhere around that 1 year mark. It was to a year before I was able to hold my head above, but it's going to, what's your big thing you're going to change? And I didn't get in there to change anything. I got in there to kind of hold the status quo, to stay responsible with taxpayer money. And I told him that. I said, I'm not trying to change anything. I'm going to go in there and find out what's going on before I jump in and change. I don't have enough knowledge to go change things. And I'm getting more comfortable and I don't know it all, but I know a lot more than I did 2 years ago. I'll guarantee you that. But this isn't the first job I've jumped into without knowing anything. When I started unloading trucks, I'd never drove one of those Wagners before, and they're big. But I had the experienced operator that rode along with me and sat in the back seat or the side, hung onto the side rail and told me how to do it. And when I got in trouble, he showed me how to get out of it and did that. So this is kind of the same thing. You got to listen to the people that know more than you do. They might
Brad,
not.
I appreciate your candor. I appreciate your courage, and I appreciate your service. And also I appreciate you sharing all this, because this is what people need to know, that real people can get involved, can make a difference, and you just jump in where you're at and get going. We're gonna wind things down here. Next week, I believe we've got a gentleman on, Sam Rubino, with fieldandstreetspolitical.com, who's real big into utilizing text messages for campaigning. So if you have a limited budget like you did last time, Brad, and you don't want to do all the yard signs and can't knock on all the doors if there's another scare of some sort, this is a way to reach people that seems to be pretty effective. We've had some of our people use it, and it's proving results. So he's going to talk to us about that, I believe, next week. We've got some other people lined up in the future. We'll let that be a surprise, but we've got some people on the national scene as well who will be speaking with our membership. So again, I appreciate all of you. And I know there was a heck of a lot going on tonight, but this is going to be recorded. I'm going to stop that in just a second for posterity's sake. Brad, again, thank you. Everyone else who's listening, appreciate you. Get involved.
Yep. And
Thanks
thanks
again.
Rod. Thanks, Jerry, for being on.
Thank you. You guys have a great week.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments too, Jerry. All right, Brad. Thank you again. We'll see you soon.
You bet. Have a great one.
You bet.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.